even gonna try to deny it. I've been absolutely lusting over the idea of AMD's Strix Halo APU ever since I first heard about its potential for existing all the way back in August 1st of 2023. AMD's fusion dance of their Ryzen CPU cores and the Radeon graphics has been a match made in my heart for ages. I've owned nearly every generation of Ryzen APU, and I've even ordered them from China directly because AMD refused to sell them by themselves in the US. So when I learned that Team Red was finally going to take the dive to bring a console-like chip to PC enthusiasts, I had a Pavlovian response. And now, I finally have one here in my possession. So we're going to be seeing what this Halo chip is exactly capable of in terms of its gaming prowess and where it stacks up against other GPUs. A bunch of comparisons have been made to the 4070, 4060 and the like, so we're gonna see how accurate those are. Now, the Strix Halo chip, known as the horrifically named Ryzen AI Max Plus 395. While the nomenclature might be pure marketing vomit, the tech packed into this thing is anything but. 16 full-fledged Zen 5 cores, 32 threads, up to 5.1 gigahertz clock speed, 64 megabytes of L3 cache. That's 2/3 the amount on the X3D Ryzen 7 chips, but only half of what the Ryzen 9 X3Ds have. Now, the model we use for testing is in this Asus ROG Flow Z13 gaming tablet with 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5X memory, but the chip itself can support up to 128 gigabytes, which you see for sale in Framework's desktop. Additionally, that Framework chip has the full fat 120 watt TDP, which allows it to provide a ton of performance. Our chip, however, doesn't have an officially posted TDP anywhere that we could find, but we found, and so did others, that it ran between 50 and 60 watts in the tablet. However, as far as I'm aware, this is the only iteration of the Strix Halo APU right now, as of the time of filming, out on the market, so it is all we can test. But just know that this chip can only go up from our numbers here if you get a model with a higher TDP. And if you want a full review of the ROG Flow Z13, stay tuned and get subscribed because we should be having that come out shortly. Now let's go ahead and compare this chip to the PS5 APU because they're very similar in terms of ideas as well as performance. It's got 2/3 of the power profile, that 120 watts compared to the 180 at the top spec. We're actually more running about 1/3 of it. And it has roughly half the memory bandwidth of the PS5 as well. The PlayStation ships with 448 gigabytes per second of memory, with the Strix Halo maxing out at 256, which our model does. But this guy has 4 more graphical compute units at a total of 40 to the PS5's 36, and it is based on the newer RDNA 3.5 architecture to the PlayStation's RDNA 2. So this is more akin to the PS5 Pro in terms of architecture. Now, doing the useless comparison of teraflops between the PS5 and the Strix Halo, the console gets 10.29 teraflops and the mobile chip here hits 11.96, but that presumes full TDP, which we don't have here. But all of those specs and alphanumeric garbage simply means this thing is dang fast, a high performer for not having a dedicated graphics card. So let's go ahead and run the numbers and see exactly what the AI Max Plus machine is capable of doing. We'll start off with non-gaming synthetic benchmarks first, so this way you can compare it to your system at home and get a feel for what we're working with here in this little powerhouse. In Passmark, we had a CPU score of 34,910, a 3D score of 16,419, and an overall of 10,038. Cinebench gave us a single core score of 115 and a multi-core of 1,325. Geekbench's single core was 2,975, multi was 19,709, and the GPU hit 89,476 points. 3D Mark's Steel Nomad hit 1,681 with an FPS of 17, with the Steel Nomad Lite doing 63 FPS and a score of 8,566. Unigen Superposition 1080p Extreme gave us 5,226 with an FPS of 39, and 1080p Medium did 16,268 with an FPS of 122. Again, A lot of numbers. I'll put it all in context after the gaming results so you can know how it stacks up to various other equivalents. For gaming, we tested a couple resolutions for each game. We tried to hit the native resolution of the Flow's display, which is around 1600p, but we also did a lot of 1080p tests to normalize it for future comparisons and what you could compare it to at home. I'll be quoting the 1080p results mostly in my verbiage, but you can see the 1600p results on the screen as well as I discussed them. Black Myth Wukong hit 63 FPS on high settings. Monster Hunter Wilds did 53 FPS on high as well. Cyberpunk gave us 94 frames at the same high settings. Horizon Forbidden West couldn't quite crack 60 with an average of 56, but Indiana Jones did just hit that 60 FPS finish line for its average FPS. And Black Ops 6 exceeded that, coming in at 72 frames. Baldur's Gate was punishing with a 41 FPS average, and GTA 5's new Enhanced Edition made the Strix Halo chip work to hit that 65 frame average. But no game was as brutal on our APU as Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition with 1080p high with Force Ray Tracing. That test crashed the frame rate down to just 29. But in esports titles like CS2, we got 127 FPS at 1080p high and 103 at 1600p medium, where Marvel Rivals did 101 at 1200p high and 67 at 1600p medium. Overall, it's a competent chip for gaming on the go with this tablet. It's a little tablet. We tested out a few more games, and those are going to play now on the screen to some background music. So all of those just mean that this thing can game at 1080p or potentially higher depending on the game. But how does it stack up to other options on the market? Well, while we haven't tested that many other options personally here at UFT Tech, we sourced a few comparisons from sites like Tom's Hardware and RTings. It looks like the closest competitor to this bad boy is the ROG Zephyrus G14 with an 8845HS processor and an RTX 4070 mobile GPU. In CPU tests, the Strix Halo chip is fantastic, beating out the Ryzen 9 8945HS by 17% in single core and 53% in multi-core thanks to its double core count of 16 cores. But in GPU tests, it does lag behind, about 18% in the synthetic benchmarks. But in gaming, it's only about a 6% loss for the integrated 8060S, that's the name of the GPU that's in the Strix Halo, at the native 1600p resolution. That's not bad for a chip that only sucks 52 watts during gaming, while the G14 goes a little bit more hungry at 75 watts. 30% less power for 6% worse gaming performance. Not a bad trade-off at all. And again, look at how thin and light this is. Looking at other options though, we decided to set the Z13 as the baseline and see how it stacked up to an Alienware M16 R2 with both a 4060 and 4070, the G14 from before, and a couple of MacBook Pros, one with the M4 Pro and the other with the M4 Max. Evaluating 1080p gaming performance, the 4060 Alienware laptop is about 9% faster, the 4070 M16 is 22% faster, the G14 was 7% quicker, the M4 Pro MacBook was 32% slower, and the M4 Max was about 13% better. I know, I'm just as shocked as you are that the M4 Max is competent at gaming. We're actually going to be having a video where we're going to test the M3 Ultra's 80-core GPU in gaming, so also get subscribed for that in case you're interested. But with the information we have access to, it looks like it doesn't beat the gaming power of a discrete GPU like the 4060 or the 4070, depending on its power profile. But the Strix Halo APU is very competent in high to ultra 1080p gaming scenarios. However, it can struggle with ray tracing, especially comparing it to NVIDIA's hardware. But it has solidly better CPU performance than most other gaming laptops out on the market. The latest Zen 5 architecture, high cache count, and speedy clock speed gives it an advantage over what we've been seeing in other gaming notebooks that are currently out for sale. And it's fairly efficient as well. I mentioned the 52 watts compared to the G14's 75 watts, but also the Alienware M16 with the 4060 consumed 94 watts. That's 80% more power consumption for just 9% better gaming performance. Overall, it just comes out that AMD has created an incredibly special piece of tech in the Strix Halo Ryzen AI Max Plus 395. It's got killer CPU performance, competent gaming performance, and again, we're looking at less than half the total TDP and a quarter of the RAM that this chip is actually capable of. It only goes up from here. And after all this testing, my deeply held desire to get my hands on this APU was not at all disappointed. AMD delivered something that I could only dream of when I built my first Ryzen 5 2400G PC nearly 7 years ago. Back then, an APU could get you your gaming fix if you were willing to drop your resolution down to 720p and all of the settings down to low. But now, we live in a reality where AMD's shipping a chip that can run at regular resolutions, high settings, and still stay above 60 FPS. It's truly a modern marvel of engineering that this thin tablet manages to game as well as it does thanks to the Strix Halo chip. And now that I've had a taste, I am itching to get my hands on a 120 watt version. My framework desktop order cannot arrive soon enough.